Tuesday, August 14th, 2012. You're listening to The Jack Blood Show. I'm Jack Blood, your narrator, your radio gun, reporting for the next 2 hours. We've got a good show for you today. She is the one and only Abby Martin. You might know her from RT. She also started Media Roots. As I mentioned, she's an artist in her own right. Go to abbymartin.org and look at all of her great art. And she's smart because, well, she's smart in a lot of ways. Because I need to be selling you guys art. That's what I want to do. Hey, man, I love doing art, and maybe it would give you something for your great contributions. But she's got a real talent for that and a lot of other things, and I love what Abby does because she asks the hard questions. Maybe you don't like RT, maybe you don't like hard questions, I don't know, but she does it. Caught in the middle of this massive viral news story here a couple of weeks ago, and she couldn't come on, but she's with us now. Abby, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Jack.
So, yeah, how about all those news stories to start off with? That was a crazy news day.
Yeah, I mean, it's been insane for the last month with all these shootings. I don't even really know what to think about it. I mean, people just came out right away and said they were all false flags, but I like to wait until the evidence is laid out before I make a judgment call on that.
Yeah. Well, here's what I say. Here's why it could be a false flag, and here's why it might not be. So that's what we do, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Whereas the mainstream media will not even mention that there's no possibility at all it could have been a false flag, and you're crazy if you even think that.
Right, exactly.
All right. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. Big fan.
Thanks for coming into work a little bit late to be with us today. Okay, so we can't get away from this. I want to talk about a lot of things with you, Abby, on the show today. You went to Bilderberg here last month. I want to hit that up and get your take on some of the political stuff going on, talk a little bit about what RT is. Let's start with the big one. A couple of weeks ago, a viral news story came out that Rand Paul and his cohorts in the Senate had threatened RT, had threatened you to pull all your passes and to get you fired because why? I guess you asked a couple of questions you weren't supposed to ask. This is very un-Paul-like. How is it that Ron Paul, for 30 years, cannot offend the alternative media at all, and this guy comes in and within a year or two, he's pissed everybody off?
Yeah, it was really upsetting, actually, because I did like him. I like him and Ron because they're fierce civil libertarians, and I had a lot of respect for his father. And, you know, when he endorsed Mitt Romney, the warmonger sociopath who wants to invade Iran and possibly start World War III, I found the opportunity. I was like, you know what, I'm in D.C., he's having a public press event. Why not ask him and confront him about these issues that so many people in the liberty movement want to know? I had the opportunity to do that. So I know people, he gave a couple canned press, responses to the endorsement. Nothing really like that were satisfying to people. So anyway, I mean, he was having this public press event in the Capitol building. Luke and I were going in there, both registered independent, press, just got right in. On our way to the room, we saw him walking toward us and we couldn't really pass it up. So just asked him why he endorsed Mitt Romney, asked him a bunch of things, walked away like a coward, didn't even respond. And then I thought that was over, Jack. The video went viral, got like 100,000 plus hits. And then a week later, I went into my office and basically they told me that the Capitol Police and the Senate Media Committee were threatening to arrest me, and gonna send the police down there to arrest me and charge me with harassment. So it was pretty shocking what happened. Never would have expected that from Rand. Right. And I did get confirmed that was directly coming from the senator, the complaint. Whether or not he told the Capitol Police to come and arrest me or if they took that upon themselves is unknown, but I know that it did come from him.
Well, that's the thing. You don't expect it from somebody like that. I don't know if you know much about my history, but most of the trouble I've had and most of the attacks I've gotten are from my fellow people in the alternative media. You would think that, the mainstream media or the establishment would be the ones attacking me, and they've come after me in the past too, and we've had lawsuits and threats and all kinds of stuff, but But when when the knife comes from behind, it's a little shocking sometimes. So how did that resolve itself? Because last time we left you didn't want to come on and talk about it because this thing you were still talking to RT and still trying to save your job and everything. So how did it end up working out?
It still is kind of unresolved, but I just figure it's already out there. There's nothing I can do to take it back that I came out with it. I mean, I sat on it for like a month, Jack. I mean, after they were calling with all these blanket threats to my office, I was really scared. I thought that I was going to get fired. I thought that my press credentials were going to be taken away, and I was really worried about what was going to happen because of this. I ended up meeting with the bureau chief heads in kind of like a small sort of interrogation room in the Capitol building where they confronted me about what happened. Did I sneak Luke in? How did I get in there? And I told them my side of the story very matter-of-factly, and they ended up just saying like, well, we didn't know that he was having a public press event there. There's really kind of nothing we can do about it, but we'll notify you with the final list of charges. Because I kept telling them to give me everything in writing.
Yeah.
Because everything up until that point had just been like phone call threats. And so I just said, please tell me in writing what you're charging me with so I can know to get a lawyer and figure out what the hell's going on. And then it never happened, which makes me think that, he kept saying, yes, I'll give you the charges, I'll give you the charge. Never heard back, so I just figured, I'm just going to come out with this because Rand Paul is a sellout. He was directly involved in this. Like, I just can't sit on this any longer because people still are making excuses for him, and I can't stand it. So, I mean, overall, the situation hasn't really resolved itself. I just kind of came out with it and let the chips fall where they may. I mean, the truth will set you free. That's my motto.
Right. But it's one thing here to all right, I'm going to go with the party. What we found out, actually, Abby, was that before he was even selected as senator in Kentucky, he had made some kind of a deal with the party to get their support, to support the nominee no matter who it was. I mean, that's how far ahead they're thinking. That was 3 years ago. So it's one thing to do that and then tell us, well, this is the macro, this is the big picture, this is how big boys play politics, and it's another thing to not just endorse Romney and throw him your little nod begrudgingly, like most of these guys kind of throw up in their mouth while even these big Republicans, while they have to endorse Romney, none of them really want to do it, but they're going to do it. Team player and all of that. It's another thing to, you're going to go campaign for him. You're telling us what a great guy he is. And then just to completely, without being asked, like it's almost a non sequitur here, just throwing in why John McCain's so great. And we love him and he's just a wonderful guy, It's one thing, though, to do all of that. And we go, all right, you're going to get us in there. You're going to do all this wonderful stuff for us in the Senate. You're our man over there. You're just trying to get in the door. I'm not supporting that, but I can understand it. It's another thing to threaten an independent journalist who's simply asking a very upfront question of why did you do this? And so I think he's taken it to a new level. And if people can't see what a problem this is a First Amendment issue, then I'm sorry for them.
Yeah, absolutely. He could have just come out and said, we need to work together to beat Obama. He didn't have to endorse him. Although I do understand what you're saying is that, he's playing the game, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, he's getting in there and potentially doing this and that. But I mean, even just the whole audit the Fed thing, even if the Fed per se were audited, that bill went through, I just don't believe that a private bank would administer an audit and be accountable. Like, I mean, it's just so corrupt. It's just like, and then what? Like, I mean, all these like end-all things that people think are going to solve everything, like get Ron Paul in there, get Rand Paul in there, audit the Fed. It's like, okay, they're political actors. They have, it's like after this whole event with Rand, I just can't trust him at all.
I look at the policies, and by the way, I'm not saying that. I was giving you the excuse that Rand Paul was giving us, or Jack Hunter was giving us.
Oh, God.
Yeah. How do you think those guys are going to do standing up in front of the Ron Paul faithful at some event in Tampa? You think they're going to get away unscathed, Jack Hunter and Rand Paul?
No, I can't wait for that.
I think there could be a problem, Lucy, on that one. But you look at his policies, and you see, okay, man, all these guys, they're kind of trapping us. Well, we can go to war if Congress votes on it. That's what they've been saying, right? Mm. Well, what do you think Congress is going to do? Of course they're going to vote to go to war. It's not, I understand. I don't want war by executive order. I don't want war by war powers or war through NATO. And yes, they've got a valid complaint about this, but to really just make it legitimate because Congress votes on it, I'm not buying it.
Yeah, that's a really great point, actually. I mean, it's undermining that whole conventional wisdom, even from those people. You know, they lied about the WMDs. It's like, well, who's to say that we should go to war just because someone has WMDs? It's like all these things that just don't make sense, but are just like unquestionable. You know, I mean, that's a really good point.
Well, Israel has WMDs. Should we go to war with them?
Yeah, I mean, they're aggressors.
And France and China and Russia and all the rest of them. And then you look at his drone policy, Rand Paul, and he says, well, I don't think there should be drones flying around, and this is, you know, against our Fourth Amendment, blah, blah, blah. But if it's a matter of national security or if they have a warrant, I mean, we've seen, you know, with FISA and all of these snooping warrants, it ain't hard getting a warrant. In Texas, all they do is they have an automatic warrant button they push, and if they suspect you of a DUI, they can take your blood with that warrant, literally steal your blood and use it against you. So that isn't hard to get a warrant, and everything is national security. So it doesn't mean he's against the drones. He just wants there's to be some kind of justification for the drones. I mean, that's not good enough for me.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that piece of legislation, it was like Rand Paul rallies against drones, and then you looked through it, and like you said, every point of it, like a police matter, border patrol, national security. It's like, well, national security, throw that right out the window because anything can be national security. So what's the point of having a piece of legislation when they can just come out and be like, well, it's a matter of national security?
Yeah. Well, we hear, I know, we hear that all the time. Yeah, sure. It's a matter of national security. We've got to set up the Hutari militia in Michigan. We hear this constantly. Then there's the airport scanner thing, the TSA thing. He's against the TSA, the groping. Fine, that's good. He didn't really come get our back in Texas when we passed legislation to stop the gate rape, and they threatened us with a no-fly zone, but maybe that's not his state, and Ron Paul didn't really come to our rescue either on that deal. But he takes us to this end, again, where he's for profile, and he wants an El Al system. And he wants biometric, entry, what do they call registered traveler program. If you give them your biometrics and iris scans, you get to not be, gate raped and take your shoes off and all of that. So what is he really doing here with this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, he's for sanctions on Iran. He's definitely not the same as his dad. I mean, we already know that much. He never was. I think people just had a lot of faith because they knew that Ron Paul was on his way out, and they just kind of looked to his son to take over his legacy, and he's just failing abysmally in doing that. I mean, yes, he is still doing good things. At least he's vocalizing opposition to some of these crazy, horrendous fascist policies in the government. That's good. But I think putting your faith behind any politician is misguided, and it's just wrong. Because it just makes you more disillusioned and disenchanted in the long run, especially with this Ron Paul thing where he just didn't take it all the way to the end once again, just like in 2008. He could have easily said, I'm in it to win it. And people are just like, well, he was never really in it to be president. I'm like, then why did he run? Like, everyone wanted him to be president. I mean, that's why they've donated millions of dollars to him. Like, yes, I get that it's about the message, but geez, I mean, if this is your last leg in the game, then take it all the way to the end. Right. Don't cowtail out before even the RNC.
I think they wanted to be president. I just think they were realistic. I got to tell you, we all knew. Yeah. I used to have Ron Paul all the time. He hasn't come on since we had him on to announce the 2008 run, and then somebody asked him about 9/11. I think that's the last time he did the show, but because he has talked about it in the past. You look at old Ron Paul, talks about CIA smuggling drugs over the border, something we've just again got more evidence of, and the new Ron Paul is trying not to be quite as outrageous, and even that said, he still stands out as the most outrageous of all the candidates in the debates, and I'm glad he was there. I do support Ron Paul and his efforts, but I'm not a lemming, I'm not a sheep or a Kool-Aid drinker, so I do think for myself still, and I'm not giving that up. Are we being too hard on Rand? We didn't even go over some of his other policies, like you can't be at a speech or a rally with somebody who's sympathetic with a terrorist. I mean, we look at the NDAA, and right now I could charge Obama and all of Congress on that thing for what they've done in Syria. So I don't know, who's pointing fingers here. Usually the guy with pointing fingers, three are pointing back at him. Are we being too hard on Rand Paul here? Are we scrutinizing him too much, or what's your feelings on this?
Well, I mean, I have a personal vendetta against him now, so I would say no. But no, I mean that is atrocious what he said about you should arrest someone if they have just attended a speech. I mean, that is a really slippery slope there. So that's you're treading in some dangerous water there if you agree with what he says on that. And yeah, the profiling. No, I don't think we're being too hard on Rand. I think that we should be hard on everyone in there who makes these decisions and says things that are completely disagreeable and dangerous. I think it's absolutely great that people are speaking out and seeing through the charade. I mean, these people are political actors for the most part. I mean, I do love Ron Paul for what he did in the path that he set and paved. But I mean, for the most part, yeah, he's an actor too. I mean, I think that he feels a lot of things that he can't say. He has to play the game, the 9/11 stuff, all that stuff. So it's just once again taking, don't put all your chips on one car, or I don't know what the hell that saying is. Don't put all your eggs in one basket is what I'm saying.
Don't put all your chips on Black 13. It could be another number. Well, yeah, and look, I never fully, I endorse these people. I'll vote for some of them. I voted for Cynthia McKinney in the last election, so, people don't like that for some reason. She's actually doing a thing for my friend's chemtrail event, and she, asked Rumsfeld where the missing trillions were from the Pentagon, and Myers why they were running drills the morning of 9/11. That took a lot of guts, man, and so I voted for a black woman, and now I'm a racist because Obama's in. Go figure that one. Yeah. But you can endorse a candidate, you can vote for a candidate, but you still got to keep them honest. I mean, they are politicians, and we can't follow the leader here. These guys aren't gods. Even Ron Paul, as good as he's been, has a few faults, and we've got to work to keep these guys honest. So when we get them in office, then the real work starts. A, we got to help them do the stuff that's good that they need help on, because they need a lot of help. And B, we got to, make sure that they're on the right track. That's what we're here. There are representatives. Let's remember that.
Absolutely. Yeah. All the people who voted for Obama and then kind of just backed out, and they were just like, well, it's like that everyone just puts their faith in like this 4-year election cycle, and it's just so ridiculous. I mean, nothing happens ever, and they put their faith in this president who will do nothing, who will change nothing, in fact make things worse, as we've seen for the past 4 years, and people just are like, well, we can't, we have to back off, the Republicans are giving a hard time as it is. It's like, no, that we have to get on his butt, because if we don't, then he's never going to do anything. I mean, the pressure needs to come from us. You can't just expect them to do things when they're in there. They're completely bought out. And people are giving him a pass and saying well, he needs a second term because then he won't worry about re-election, and then he'll do all the things that he really wants to. I'm like, where's your blind optimism coming from? It's completely blind. What makes you think that he'd do anything in the next term? Then he won't have to worry about re-election. It gives him even more of a reason to not do anything.
Well, that's the problem is, he's not going to do what you want. He's going to do what his masters tell him to do, and he's not going to worry about re-election, because then they'll just bring in anybody but that guy, which looks to be Jeb Bush, believe it or not, in 2016.
No.
Just when you think there's no way that you could ever elect a Bush again, and I thought that before the last election, when baby Bush got in. Here it is again. It's possible. It's actually possible. In fact, I think the whole Romney campaign is a setup for that. They look like they're taking a dive every day of the week here, but that's what I said about John Kerry, and I was wrong about that. Oh, that's right, I was right about that. That's what I said about John McCain, and well, we can look at history. Just two more questions on the Rand Paul thing. First of all, I found it a little humiliating that the Daily Paul, and I love those guys, I love all those people over there, they didn't even post your story. I couldn't find it over there. They're not even going to talk about it?
They did, actually, but there was, maybe they took it down since, but they did post it, and there was a huge thread saying that I was lying, that I was making it up. I was like, why the hell would I make this up? I'm actually really scared to talk about this, because I don't know what's going to happen to me. I mean,
they said that about my friend Penny Freeman when she came out and talked about what she knew about the Pauls as well, which she'd been telling me for years, and I was sworn to secrecy. I knew all of that stuff, and she went on Adam Kokesh's show, and and talked about, how they sell the lists, how important the lists are. Well, that can't be true. I don't know why I'm getting all these letters in my email from Ann Romney, but it's just probably a coincidence.
Yeah, I mean, people, I think they deify him, and I think that they just need to wake up from that and just stop acting as if Ron Paul's like the end-all be-all, and if he doesn't win, then what the hell are they going to do? Like, they've just put everything behind him, and it's just like, you guys got to look at the bigger picture here and kind of take a step back, gain some perspective. He is just one person, and it can't all be about him. You got to do something too. Like, we all have to take our own our actions. So yeah, I mean, the Daily Paul thread was just like totally lambasting me, pulling out random things, saying, well, we all know that Abby hates Ron Paul. She's, Media Roots is like socialist, all this stuff. I was like, what are you talking about? I actually really like Ron Paul. I voted for him in 2008. I became Republican for him.
You've been very supportive of him.
Very supportive, yeah. I mean, I really like him a lot, and there's not many people that I like that are representatives, and he's definitely one of them. So it's just, a lot of demonizing, shoot the messenger. So
here's the big question, and then we'll go to a break and we'll totally change course and talk about you and some other things. Everyone likes talking about themselves except me, but I'm going to make you do that, and then make you tell everybody again what a big fan you are of the show and that kind of thing. We'll get that all racked up here for future promos. I'm just kidding. People call the media prostitutes. I think that's really not fair to prostitutes, okay? Some prostitutes are okay. They're more like crack whores. They're worse. They're worse than crack whores, the mainstream media. But this is the whole thing. And so when I look at your situation, the first thing I think about is what these crack whores in the media, these repeaters, not reporters, will do for access to these legislatures, to the candidates, to people in the news, and how they'll bend over every time so they don't lose that access. And that's what's happened to you. That's what they try to threaten you and Russia Today with. And doesn't that really say why we're not getting really insightful, really good questions being asked of these people ever? Tim Russert used to ask some hard questions. I had him on this show. He's dead now. So they hold this access over your head, right? So that if you are a bad repeater, then you don't have the access, you don't get the big players on, and you don't have credibility, and you're not important. Isn't that how it works?
Yeah, that's exactly, Jack. I mean, look at what just happened to me. Right when I move here, I automatically almost lose access for the rest of my life to this one building that, all the representatives reside in and have their conferences. It's like, I didn't really know the rules before I came here. I didn't know how the Hill worked, but it is very exclusive. It is very, it's the who's who, and you do need to play by the rules if you want to play the game, and I just didn't know that. And even if I did know that, I still think that I would have done what I did because I wanted to confront him about it. And I know that, yeah, when you do get into these press conferences and you do have a chance to ask them a question, they don't call on you. And if you call their staffers and say, I want a meeting, people are like, oh, what? It's ambush journalism. It's wrong. He would happily sit down with you. It's like, yeah, you call Rand Paul's office and tell me how that works out for you.
Yeah.
Try to get a meeting with him to sit down and just talk.
I've been told that a million times. Just go away and we'll, Chris Matthews people told me that. I've been told that by everybody. Just call us back or you try to give them some evidence and we'll get back to you. Don't call us, we'll call you. It never happens.
Yeah. So it's a total, it's a bubble,
That's how it works. But that's how it works. And why doesn't the media just revolt against this? Why are they putting up with this? It didn't used to be like this. This is a fairly new phenomenon in the last 20 or 30 years. Why do they just put up with it?
Well, yeah, interestingly enough, the bureau chiefs, after I met with them in the room, they are actually really nice. And the guy who initially called to threaten the office came out with me and he was like, look, we're on your side. We want more transparency here. We want more ability to confront politicians and do these things in here. He's like, but we've fought so hard to get access, and he's like, we just need to play by the rules, and he's like, when things like this happen, it kind of sets us back. And I was like, okay. It's just like, what? And so he was kind of admitting that they wish that they could, but they can't. Kind of thing.
That's the thing when we were reporting your story here of 2 weeks ago that we really focused on was that all of these bureau chiefs from all of the networks cornered you in a room to complain about this. They were all too happy to serve Senator Rand Paul in the Senate Media Relations Committee.
Yep. It was really surreal, very nerve-wracking, really intense.
I've been there. You know, in 2004, Abby, I got congressional press passes to cover the convention, both the conventions in 2004 in Boston and New York. Not only that, it was with Fox News. Not only that, they put me right on Media Row. And you can imagine, here I am on Media Row. I had one really, talk about surreal. I'm sitting there talking with G. Edward Griffin about the Federal Reserve, and you couldn't talk about that like you can now. In 2004, this was an outrageous thing to do, right on Media Row with a big Fox banner hanging next to me. And Wolf Blitzer comes up, all 4'5" of him, and just stands in front of me while I'm talking to G. Edward Griffin about the Federal Reserve. He's literally 4 feet from me. And he just crosses his arms, and he's just glaring at me in total disbelief that somebody would be doing this. But it was great because I got to look behind the scenes at Fox News, and I didn't owe them anything. They weren't paying me. I didn't care if they took my passes from me. I could just go in there like a bull in a china shop, and everybody was just blown away by what we did. And I'm glad I had the experience, though. I wouldn't want to do that for a living. I like what I'm doing. Abby Martin is with us. Her great art site, you got to check this out, abbymartin.org. She also reports for Russia Today, mediaroots.org. And it's .org, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And we're going to come back. We're going to talk about some news, talk about things going on. I want to find out a little bit more about Russia Today, so get ready for that, Abby. Tell us whatever you're allowed to tell us without Putin coming and personally whacking you on the head or whatever it is. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back. It's the Jack Blood Show, No Agenda Global Radio and affiliates. We'll be back. Yeah. How did Jello Biafra know what 2012 was going to be like? Oh, that's because he made art and music during the Reagan administration. See, everyone blames Nixon, but we didn't have a police state until the Reagan administration, big time. Yeah, I know we had COINTELPRO and all this stuff in the 60s, but they just didn't have the technology. They just didn't have the people. They didn't have the money. And you started it off with Nixon. It gets really rammed in the Reagan, let's just call it what it was, the Bush senior administration, after he tried to kill Reagan. And, oh, did I say that out loud? And then, and it's all been downhill since. Good job, Dead Kennedys. Excellent job on Police Truck. You nailed it. Now we're looking at something called Trapwire. It's just come out. Stratfor leaks. I don't know how much stock you put in this. The whole thing could be a paranoia psyop. Trapwire means that CSI is real, that the police really can take over all the closed-circuit cameras, private and otherwise. They can use algorithms and supercomputers built by Bill Gates to watch everybody all the time for everything. The prototype for all of this has rolled out in New York City under Michael Bloomberg, and they've even made a deal to get 30% of any sales to other cities as they watch you, listen to you, smell you, and talk to you all the time. What a wonderful thing, Abby, this is. I mean, now law-abiding citizens will be protected, right, from the terrorists.
Yeah, I mean, the Trapwire thing is... It's funny because it's more advanced than facial recognition technology, which I thought was coming out in 2014. There's a couple states working with the FBI to implement that, and then this Trapwire thing comes out, and you're like, oh, well, it's already happening everywhere, even more sophisticated than what we already thought. And the fact that they can take over literally any surveillance camera, like in a department store. You just walk in, and it's all centralized to a giant database, every couple seconds, pretty much. I mean, this is happening. It's just ridiculous. Right,
well, that's just what they're telling us, too. I mean, it could be... Hey, sorry, the Ramones, man. They always do that to me. From the grave. No, that's just what they're telling us, though. They're telling us this. There's more stuff they're not telling us.
Yeah, well, it took, months to search through those, the millions of emails that Anonymous hacked into from Stratfor, so who knows what the hell else they're doing. I mean, this is just what we know so far. And then selling the information to private companies, and It's outrageous when you realize how expansive the surveillance grid really is. Is it going to backfire and cause more of a chilling effect? Who knows? But it never ceases to amaze me every day.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the headline on Drudge today is Department of Homeland Security under Janet is more scrutinized and more complained about than ever before. But I think it's just, first of all, we did complain in the Bush administration. There was quite a few of us. Many of us left to support Obama. So they don't complain anymore. But still, it's not something we've been happy with. And it's just getting worse and worse as they take more and more liberties.
You could say the same about the TSA, but then that Gallup poll just came out that said the majority of Americans support the TSA. So it's like, really? It's like the DHS and the TSA are the most like incompetent, just corrupted bureaucracies, like bureaucratic agencies that are just totally unnecessary, like created in the wake of 9/11 just to expand, get more money and just expand the surveillance security apparatus, and they're totally inept, and like people fucking support. I'm sorry, I just swore.
No, that's okay. Go ahead. We're allowed to.
Oh, really?
We are. Gosh darn it.
Yeah, but it was amazing that I saw that, and I was like, wow, people actually support the TSA after everything that they've done. That's so outrageous,
Abby Martin.
Still think it's supporting or preventing terrorism from happening.
Please, I think my audience wants to hear you say "fuck" again. There's something about you saying it that takes on a whole new meaning.
I will.
Go ahead.
Fuck the TSA.
We'll slow that down. Rush, you can't say that on Russia Today. Russia Today. So are you getting promoted over there, or tell us what's going on with you in Russia Today, and then tell us who Russia Today is. What I think maybe people don't know what it is and who funds it and what its purpose is. I appreciate it because you do report things that get out to a wide group, a wide audience that most people would never hear. So I appreciate what goes on. I don't trust it or count on it like any media. I know you seem pretty cool. Tell us about Russia Today, and then I think you're getting a new show or something over there.
Yeah, Russia Today, it's RT for short, the little green box. It's on cable, it's streaming online and archived on YouTube. It's just like the BBC. It's state funded. So you could take that with a grain of salt. The thing about RT is that it's not RT Moscow, so we don't really report on Russia. I've never even reported really on Russia. I mean, the closest I've gotten is talking about Syria, and that's really, I was never really told what to say or do. I just kind of reported what I want to. If I worked for the RT Bureau in Moscow, it would probably be a different story. But RT America focuses on American foreign policy, American domestic policy, social issues, things like that. I've been speaking out against the establishment, the empire, imperialism for the last 10 years. So to be given an international platform to do it with no top-down censorship or control from my higher-ups immediately at the station, then hey, I'll take it.
Yeah, well, okay, so, but if there was a story involving, Putin doing a false flag terrorism and blaming the Chechens or something, I don't know, maybe that could happen, maybe it didn't. Oh, it did? Okay. Are you allowed to report on that? Is somebody going to go in there and tell you, no, you're fired, you can't report on that, come on, you're putting us in a bad position here?
That's a really good question. I mean, I'm not going to cover pro-Putin stories when the Pussy Riot thing and all these crazy human rights abuses going on over there, voting fraud, etc. I'm not going to go out there and tout Putin as like some gem. I've never had to, and that I'll take that as it comes. When the time comes, if something like that happens, then yeah, it's going to be interesting because I won't do that.
So you're not some kind of Toyko Rose, okay? Is that the deal?
Yeah.
Say it. I want you to say it. I am not a Toyko Rose.
I'm not a Toyko Rose.
Do you know what that means, right?
Yeah.
Okay. If you don't out there, you guys can look it up. Well, because I love you because you ask hard questions. So a lot of people like me because I don't pull any punches. I'm not politically correct at all, and I ask really hard questions sometimes. So we got that out of the way. Talk about Bilderberg. You went to go cover Bilderberg, and you were supposed to come on and talk about that until all this other stuff blew up, and I never did get that interview. So spend a few minutes on that. What did you see out at Bilderberg? And I'm sorry, we meant Bohemian Grove. You went out there too.
Yeah, both of them. Just the uber elite secret organizations where the rich come to play and plot and plan policy. The thing about Bohemian Grove and Bilderberg, as everyone knows, is like we don't know too much because of how elusive and secretive it is. And when there's no transparency behind these meetings, then of course you're going to get all kinds of conspiracy theories and whatnot, speculation, conjecture. But at Bilderberg was really cool because I was there in 2007 and there was like 20 times as many people there this time. You had Occupy Wall Street people there, Liberty Movement people there, just a kind of like a mixed bag of a bunch of different people who really were waking up to, this is where things happen. So that was really awesome to see, the movement kind of grow, the resistance movement against that. Alex Jones with the bullhorn, there's people just yelling scum. I was just like, it's just the typical thing, but
shouldn't they get another word besides scum? We actually went on after Bilderberg and we got the thesaurus out and gave them a number of suggestions there's other words, right?
It's a great idea.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, when you're chanting like "die scum," there's a lot of things I didn't agree with that were going on there, but for the majority, people were really awake, really engaged, and yeah, I mean, we saw Bill Gates, we saw Henry Kissinger, people saw Romney. I mean, there's a lot of people that weren't on the official roster that they released on their website to kind of appease people. Like, look, here's who was here, and here's what we talked about. Well, we know that that's not the full story. And someone had told me that all these desks were in a giant circle, like a UN meeting, that they had gone into the Marriott before and they saw them setting up. And it's just like, you're telling me that they're not just planning policy this whole time,
Yeah.
So that was really ridiculous. And then Bohemian Grove was kind of even more secretive. I mean, to tell you the truth, I think more really happened there in the 80s. I don't know who goes there now. I know, of course, you have all the top people who are going there still. But as far as like policy really coming out of the Grove, I think it's more just a drunk gay resort for a lot of these people to just run around and be ridiculous. I don't know that many policies that have come out of the Grove since, or I guess in this last decade. I think it really used to be a lot more.
Apparently, Anderson Vanderbilt's husband couldn't wait for the Grove, and we just heard he was making out with some guy in the bushes in the park or something. These are the kinds of people that you trust to give you the news and to make policy for you. I just want to underscore that. You know what you said is really important. Abby Martin with us, abbymartin.org, mediaroots.org, is that they move on. I get a little perturbed at all this. Adam Curry, I think, effectively, when he was talking about Bilderberg, said this is kind of the red carpet for the alternative media. It's really nothing to do with Bilderberg, and there's all this speculation, and they were wrong on almost all of it. First they said Rubio would be the VP, then they said Daniels would be the VP. It wasn't. It was a piece of shit Ryan. But, sorry. Again, don't mean to say that stuff out loud. I offended somebody. But no, we move on. So I cover like what is going on policy-wise inside Davos, Switzerland World Economic Council, which is way more influential and important and has more gravitas and magnetism than I think even Bilderberg does. We covered the Clinton Global Initiative, which happened, by the way, the next week in Chicago under complete cloud of cover of Bilderberg. We try to get into, the G20 and G8 meeting minutes, and this to me is really, really important to find out this stuff because then we can see where policy is actually going. We can identify some of the newer players coming in, and we could see how this new world order is coming together. But it's a good show, isn't it, Bilderberg? And we had a guy inside Bohemian Grove who just sent us some more video. I haven't even talked about this. That's how much I care about it, from inside the Grove that no one's ever seen before.
Wow.
So, there you go. It's there if you want it. And the fact that these guys do mock human sacrifices in front of a giant owl, it just is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's a celebration of themselves, pretty much. But I agree with you. I think for the most part, so many people get hung up on the Bohemian Grove and Bilderberg. It's like the two things, like confronting everyone and saying, what do you think about this? Did you go to this? I mean, there's more going on, like you just pointed out very precisely, and I think that there's more happening that's more influential and more cutting. And when you can broaden that scope and look at the bigger picture and then tie everything together, because we don't know what's coming out of the groove. So yeah, you're right. The VP speculation, all that stuff. When I was at Bilderberg, Jim Tucker had heard from a friend of a friend who was inside that Ron Paul was going to be killed by the NWO. And then of course everyone there, like by the second day, everyone had like signs saying like, don't kill Ron Paul, like chanting. Yeah. I was just like, oh my God, like based on what? Like a friend of Jim Tucker.
Well, but yeah, right, good source. But well, and I also heard Jim Tucker call Obama a spear chucker at one point. So wow. I mean, there's that. I don't know if that's really great, but and I love Jim Tucker. He's very old and he's had a long, great career, and maybe it should be over at some point. I don't know. Yeah, you're right, and that's the sensationalism. But then you get this idea that, well, you've woken up to the mainstream media. You've found out that everything you learned in your life is probably a lie. All the history they taught you is fake and made up, that you really have to now go through this process of unlearning all of this before you can even learn anything else. But what do? They jump right from the mainstream media to the Oprah Winfrey of the alternative media and start repeating everything he says. They also talk about the they always talk about the Logan Act and how they're going to use the Logan Act against Rick Perry or something. That has never been used ever in 230 years as it was developed as a tool for his enemies by John Adams. It's never been used. It can't be used. It's not even possible. It's a joke. But these people all go out and they've got signs and cards and they tell everybody this and it's just more repeating. So they they wean off the mainstream media and then they end up in the alternative media under somebody else's power. Do you see that too, or am I imagining this?
No, you're dead on, Jack. I mean, that's the thing where I feel like I can't identify sometimes with anyone. Because I feel like I'm not a homophobic, like, fearmonger, and I don't identify with the extreme right-wing Christian fundamentalism. So I'm turned off by a lot of these things, and I know that there has to be a middle ground where people who are awake to the garbage and the fact that, the false flags and all these things and the creeping fascism in the police state, but don't want to go down that route because I don't know. I mean, so yeah, I feel torn a lot, and that's why I'm kind of turned off by that whole movement. Fear, and we call it fear porn. It sells. It's addictive. It sells. The paranoia is addictive. People want more and more of it. I never really fell into that, so that's why I've always been the redheaded stepchild of this little thing we call freedom movement or alternative media, and it hasn't hurt me too bad. I mean, it's hurt me bad a few times. Broke a few arms and legs, metaphorically, but I'm still alive. I'm still kicking, and I got you on, Abby Martin, so I must be doing something right. Okay, well, you're staying true to yourself, so,
I only know one way. I couldn't sell out if I wanted to. That's the problem. I've had so many offers in all my different careers, by the way. I've been successful at all of them, and I always get that offer. Come sell out, and you'll be rich and famous and everything. I'm like, nah, thanks. I can't do it. I couldn't but I'm from Seattle. That's the thing. You saw what happened to Kurt Cobain when he got rich and famous. He couldn't live with himself. He hated himself for it. He thought he was the biggest sellout ever, even though he wasn't. But that's kind of a Seattle thing, I guess. I'd love to talk about the election and all of that, and we're almost out of time, but I want to make sure we get this in. Talk about your art, because you really have a touch. You really have a great imagination, and I can tell you put a lot of time into the art that you put together. Use multimedia, which I love, everything from collage to just mixing different medias on canvas, and it's really neat, and people should go check it out at abbymartin.org, and I guess these things are for sale. Talk about art as it pertains to some of the other things you're doing.
Well, when I was 18, my brother gave me DMT, so that kind of started my journey into the abstract art. But no, I mean through my whole childhood, I always drew. I was really into Archie comics, and I loved to draw people and paint. But I never really got into just kid stuff. But I never really got into artwork as I did until I was 18, and I just kind of started painting. My grandma always did ceramics, and I always kind of played around with that. But I just picked up a paintbrush, started painting just abstract art when I was about 18, and found my niche, and it just became really therapeutic for me to do that. I never really took it seriously until People really responded to it when they came over, and I thought, well, maybe I should really, take this to the next level and do art shows, and it just became really amazing. I mean, I've gotten a ton of great reception. I've sold most of my work that I've done, and then I did my first all political installation last year, which was incredible to do, to actually have a focus and do everything politically oriented, because it's always been kind of an outlet away from my political life, the art, but then I started to do just political work, and it just was amazing what came out. I never really have a plan when I go into something, but it just kind of happens. And yeah, I've been really into collaging lately, which is just really interesting and amazing.
I'm addicted to it. Yeah.
It's the best. You can tell so many messages with the images, and you don't have to really explain it. It's just like, I don't even know where I was going to this, but you can interpret it a million different ways that you want to.
William S. Burroughs, cut-ups, and this is how I got into life as an artist, so I really appreciate it. Isn't it? I mean, here's the thing, folks. If you do what Abby and I do, and you do it 24 hours a day, and that's all you think about and that's all you do, you're going to be locked up into a loony bin at a certain amount of time.
Right.
It's too much. You learn too much. It's too much. You got to have something to get away to. You have to have some kind of outlet, whether it's playing golf or it's doing art or music or whatever. So I got to assume for you, Abby, it's pretty therapeutic.
Absolutely. And I think it's also, like you just said, everyone has an outlet. Everyone has a passion they need to hone in on. Everyone has something, the true will. I mean, something inside of yourself that can contribute or benefit society in an artistic way, in an inspirational way. And I think it's just finding whatever that is. And it's also your sense of therapy and kind of serenity almost. And I think also, like, people who do art, like Nina Simone said, art is a sign. It's supposed to be a reflection of the sign of the times. If you do art, I think it's almost your responsibility to kind of reflect society or try to put out a message in your art. And that's another thing that you can do to put the message out there, is use art. If you're not a good writer or speaker or whatnot, hone in on music or poetry or spoken word or anything like that.
Yeah. Comedy. Comedy. We're actually talking to George Carlin's daughter. We have some other comedians, thanks to one of our great producers who's also a musician, who's doing these great bumpers for us. By the way, folks, you want to get creative? We're having a huge Jack Blood bumper music contest that we'll be announcing next week, and we got all kinds of prizes for you. I can't give you a date with Abby Martin. That's probably not going to happen, but you can dream, folks. I don't want to kill the dream. Before I let you go, tell us about Media Roots. You do that with your brother, MediaRoots.org, and tell us a little bit about that and what people will find there besides all your communist rantings.
It's a citizen journalism project I started about 3 years ago, just to initially have an aggregate to pull all of my research, since, of course, finding out about 9/11, all this stuff about 9 years ago. So since then, I had compiled everything kind of in different archival bases. So I wanted just one source that was aesthetically pleasing as an artist, to have something that was good to look at visually, not littered with ads and kind of that gross feeling that you get on a lot of websites that are just bogged down. So a really clean aesthetic website that was organized. I have like minor OCD, so I wanted everything organized in these categories, and then as it expanded and it got bigger, it kind of got out of my hands, and people took an interest to it and started contributing. And so basically worldwide contributors, editors, people doing original artist interviews. My brother and I do at least a monthly giant podcast. I wish we could do it more often, but since we're cross country, it's kind of hard to keep up on that. But yeah, there's multimedia, video, radio, writing, and I'm redesigning it, so it's going to be a lot better than what it looks like right now, which is it just kind of has that feel of a blog. So I'm going to change it where it's actually a news site, where you can navigate around it a lot. So it's still going strong. I'm putting all the best things that I'm doing for RT on Media Roots, and while other people are still contributing. So I can't put as much time as I did before, but I still my baby, and I'll never let that go.
Awesome. And by the way, speaking of not letting things go, I can't let that Nina Simone reference go. That was awesome. If you don't know who Nina Simone is, folks, check her out on YouTube. An amazing singer, jazz singer, alternative. She was doing alternative music long before a lot of other people were, and please check her out. I think didn't she just die recently?
Yeah.
That sucks. The good always die young. Abby Martin, not the Abby Martin of Goosebumps in Who's Your Mummy, but the Abby Martin, not the cartoon, but the real Abby Martin from Russia Today, Media Roots. You've been a real trooper. I really appreciate you being on with us today, and it's a real pleasure to talk to you and have you. And so I guess I have to ask you this. Is there any scope of the imagination, is there any remote, infinitesimal speck of dust possibility that you'll ever see Jack Blood on RT? Because I've seen some pretty shabby people on that network as guests. Someday, is there a possibility I'm going to ever be on that network, or am I blackballed?
Oh, hell no, man. I mean, I'm getting my own show come September, so you'll definitely be. Let's do it.
Okay, be careful what you ask for, Jack Blood. You just might get it. That's how that works. AbbyMartin.org, MediaRoots.org, Russia Today. Hey, you go have a great day and stay in touch. Maybe I'll see you down in Tampa. Are you going to go cover that?
Unfortunately, no, but that's awesome that you are. I'll definitely be tuning in, Jack. Thank you so much for having me on.
You rock.
Man.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you being with us.
Talk to you soon, man. Okay,
there she goes, and there we go. We have a second hour break coming right now as we speak. And what do you think? You can email me at jackblood@hotmail.com. You can tell me what you think about Abby Martin. Some people, they're very knee-jerk, and everybody at Russia Today is bad. Maybe some people are. Maybe some people aren't. I'm keeping an open mind to all of that. We'll rest our open mind for just about a few minutes here as we take our top of the hour break. It's the Jack Blood Show, No Agenda Global Radio, Gitmo Nation. It is August 14th, allegedly, 2012. We'll be right back.
Well, we want to be free. We want to be free to do what we want to do. We want to be free to ride